The arrogant alien Prilorian Emperor Draco laughed himself nearly to tears as his invasion fleet descended on Earth, never expecting in a million years that the primitive humans had built up a massive secret armada of 500,000 advanced warships hidden on the far side of the moon. For centuries, Prilorian scout vessels had been monitoring the backwater planet, sending back reports to the Empire that these humans posed no threat. They were a divided, warlike species, still confined to their home planet, wielding laughably primitive technology. Emperor Draco smirked, reading over the latest scout report. His empire of 50 conquered star systems would roll right over the humans. Victory was assured. But the Prilorians did not know about Randy Holmes. The intrepid human spy had infiltrated the very heart of the Empire, the Imperial Palace itself, by posing as a lowly alien servant. It was there, while cleaning the royal meeting chambers, that Randy overheard the Emperor's War Council planning the surprise invasion of Earth. The attack was scheduled for one standard week from today. Randy sent an emergency-coded transmission to Earth informing them of the imminent attack. When the message reached the human leaders, there was no panic. They had been preparing for this possibility for decades in secret. Vast shipyards and bases had been constructed on the far side of the moon, out of view of any alien scouts or probes. There, the greatest human minds reverse-engineered technology from crashed alien ships, designing a cutting-edge fleet of 500,000 powerful human warships equipped with advanced weaponry and shielding. When news of the coming invasion broke, millions of humans stepped forward to volunteer, ready to crew the ships and defend their planet to the death. As the Prilorian attack force of 50,000 ships emerged from hyperspace near Earth, they expected to find a frightened populace and minimal resistance from a few clusters of primitive human fighters. Instead, humanity's secret fleet roared out from behind the moon, 500,000 strong, weapons charged and crews ready for battle. Emperor Draco paled in his command chair as his tactical display lit up with an impossible number of human vessels. He had drastically underestimated the humans, and now the two armadas faced each other in an unprecedented spaceship standoff above the blue planet. The fate of all humanity hung in the balance. This would be the greatest space battle the galaxy had ever witnessed. If the human fleet failed, Earth would burn and billions would be enslaved or slaughtered. But if the humans triumphed here today against a vast alien empire, it would be a turning point for the galaxy. The moment a young upstart species announced its presence to a dangerous universe that had always underestimated it. The Prilorian Emperor would soon learn to regret every arrogant chuckle, every dismissive insult muttered about the humans, as would every alien empire that sought to threaten Earth. The Prilorian warships unleashed a blistering barrage of plasma cannon fire and antimatter missiles at the human fleet. Massive explosions blossomed in the vacuum of space, engulfing dozens of human vessels. But the humans retaliated with their own volley of reverse-engineered alien weapons. Focused beams of unstable dark energy sliced through Prilorian hulls like a hot poker through butter. Clouds of self-replicating nanobots swarmed enemy ships, devouring critical systems. Aboard the Prilorian Imperial Palace, Randy Holmes crept through opulent corridors, a stolen plasma pistol in hand. He reached a nondescript maintenance panel and pried it open, revealing a dense network of power conduits and data cables. With a steady hand, he planted a sequence of small explosive charges. Power suddenly fluctuated across Prilorian ships as the sabotage took effect, shields dropping and weapons misfiring. Emperor Draco slammed an angry fist on his command chair. Reports flooded in of malfunctions and damage across the fleet. He realized this was no coincidence. The humans had an infiltrator in their midst. Draco turned to his most ruthless general, a hulking brute named Zortex with a face like chiseled granite. "Take your elite guard and lead the main assault personally," Draco snarled. "Tear those human ships apart. Leave none alive." As the space battle raged, Prilorian troop transports slipped past the fighting and descended on Earth's surface. Berlin, Tokyo, Rio, Moscow, iconic cities across the globe suddenly found themselves battlegrounds as Prilorian super soldiers stormed from landing craft weapons blazing, but the invaders met stiff human resistance. Shots rang out from behind rubble and street corners as human guerrilla fighters used their knowledge of the urban terrain to ambush the aliens. On the bridge of his flagship, Emperor Draco clenched his teeth as more Prylorian ships disappeared from the tactical display. The humans were putting up far more of a fight than he ever anticipated. It was time for his secret ace in the hole. He input a command into his chair console, grinning ruthlessly as a pulsing red light lit up in the ship's central weapon bay. "Let's see the humans keep fighting with no planet left to save," he chuckled darkly. As the planet-killing superweapon hummed to life, sucking in staggering amounts of power, the human fleet took notice. They realized the flagship was the key to everything. All ships reoriented and unleashed a concentrated bombardment on the Prylorian command vessel, but the flagship's shields held strong. Deep in the bowels of the Prylorian flagship, Randy crept into the thrumming central weapon bay. He froze at the sight of Emperor Draco standing before the main firing controls. The two locked eyes, both going for their weapons in the same instant. "I knew there was a rat scurrying around my palace," Draco snarled, firing off a plasma bolt. Randy rolled behind a bulkhead, barely avoiding incineration. He popped out and squeezed off shots, the blue bolts splashing harmlessly off Draco's personal shield. The two circled the chamber, trading fire, maneuvering for position amongst the jungle of pipes and power conduits. As the flagship's shields finally gave way under the barrage and human dropships latched on like ticks, Emperor Draco knew time was running out. The weapon was moments from full charge. He just needed to stall a little longer, but the persistent human spy remained an obstacle. The man was proving surprisingly formidable with the way he dodged and weaved through cover, always seeming to miss death by inches. It was like Randy could predict the Emperor's shots. The doors to the superweapon firing chamber exploded inward. Captain Maverick burst in, flanked by a squad of grim-faced human commandos in sleek black combat armor. At the same moment, Randy, locked in hand-to-hand combat with the Emperor, managed to rip off the Prylorian leader's shield generator in a shower of sparks. The space battle still raged outside the viewports. The planet killer hummed with planet-shattering energies. Smoke and alarms filled the flagship bridge, and in the heart of it all, an arrogant alien despot and a resourceful human spy circled each other with murderous intent, neither backing down, both determined to see their side emerge victorious in this pivotal moment for the galaxy. Captain Jake Maverick Steele led his team through the twisted corridors of the Prylorian flagship. Plasma bolts sizzled past their heads as they dove for cover behind alien bulkheads. "Push forward!" Steele shouted over the din of battle. "We need to reach that weapon control room." His squad leapfrogged from cover to cover, returning fire with their reverse-engineered Prylorian weapons. The alien warriors fell back under the relentless human assault. Meanwhile, Randy Holmes grappled with Emperor Draco in the central chamber. Randy ducked under a vicious swipe from Draco's clawed hand, countering with a swift kick to the alien's midsection. As they struggled, Randy activated his neural transmitter. "Steele, the weapon controls are 2 levels down, Section 17B, he grunted, narrowly avoiding Draco's grasp. On Earth's surface, General Harrison's resistance fighters sprang their trap. Prylorian super soldiers charged into a narrow street, only to be met with a hail of gunfire from windows and rooftops. "Now!" Harrison bellowed. His team detonated explosives, collapsing buildings on either side of the street and crushing the alien troops. Back on the flagship, Steele's team blasted their way into the control room. Bodies of Prylorian guards littered the floor as the humans secured the perimeter. Steele rushed to the main console, his hands flying over the alien controls. "Damn it," he swore. "We need an access code to shut this thing down." Randy's voice crackled over the comm. "I've got a plan. Keep Draco busy." Mustering his strength, Randy activated the neural link device. He felt a jolt as his mind connected with the Emperor's. Flashes of alien memories assaulted him, countless worlds conquered, billions enslaved. Randy pushed through the psychic maelstrom searching for the code. On Earth, Harrison led the charge on the Prylorian command post. Human fighters swarmed the alien fortifications, overwhelming the defenders with sheer numbers and ferocity. "We're in," Harrison shouted, bursting into the command center. "Download everything you can find. We need to know their battle plans." Randy's mind raced through Draco's thoughts, finally latching onto a sequence of alien symbols. "Steele, input the following code." Captain Steele punched in the symbols as Randy relayed them. The weapon's ominous hum faded to silence. "We did it!" Steele exclaimed. "The superweapon is offline!" Admiral John Steele's voice boomed over the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, concentrate fire on the Prelorian flagship. Today we end this threat once and for all." Emperor Draco stumbled to his feet, his usual arrogance replaced by shock and fear. For the first time in his long reign, he faced true defeat. The once mighty Prelorian armada was in tatters, their invincible weapon neutralized. As human warships closed in on all sides, Draco realized the terrible truth. He had grossly underestimated humanity. Now he had to decide, fight to the bitter end, or try to salvage what he could from this catastrophic defeat. The smoldering wreckage of Prelorian ships drifted silently in Earth's orbit, a grim reminder of humanity's hard-fought victory. On the bridge of the human flagship, Admiral John Steele's face was illuminated by the soft blue glow of holographic displays. His eyes narrowed as he studied the intercepted alien transmissions scrolling across the screen. "This can't be right," he muttered, running a hand through his graying hair. Lieutenant Sarah Chen leaned in, her brow furrowed. "Sir, we've triple-checked the translations. These messages are authentic." Steele's fist clenched. "Get me General Harrison and Randy Holmes, now." Minutes later, the bridge buzzed with activity as Earth's top military and intelligence leaders gathered around a central holotable. Randy Holmes, still bearing cuts and bruises from his confrontation with Emperor Draco, stepped forward. "The Prelorians were never the real threat," Randy said, his voice tight. "They were running scared from something far worse." General Harrison's eyes widened as he absorbed the implications. "You're saying there's an even more advanced alien civilization out there?" Randy nodded grimly. "The Zarthan Collective. They've conquered countless worlds across multiple realities. The Prelorians were just their latest victims." Admiral Steele's face hardened. "And now Earth is in their crosshairs." The holotable flickered to life, displaying a three-dimensional map of known space. Steele manipulated the controls, zooming in on a cluster of strange energy signatures at the edge of charted territory. "These anomalies," Steele explained, "they're unlike anything we've ever seen. Our scientists believe they could be linked to the Zarthan's interdimensional portal network." General Harrison leaned forward, studying the map intently. "If we could access that network, we might have a chance," Randy finished, "but we can't do it alone." A heavy silence fell over the room. Admiral Steele took a deep breath, then spoke the words no one ever expected to hear. "Bring in Emperor Draco." The Prelorian leader was escorted onto the bridge in energy shackles, his once regal bearing now diminished. But as the situation was explained to him, a spark of his old fire returned to his eyes. "You understand now," Draco said, his voice a low growl. "The Zarthans are coming for us all." Admiral Steele fixed the alien emperor with an unwavering focus. "We're offering you a choice, Draco. Help us fight the Zarthans, or face extinction alone." Draco's mandibles clicked as he considered the offer. Finally, he nodded. "Very well, humans. You have earned my respect and my allegiance." Within days, a joint human Prelorian task force was assembled. The hangar bay of the flagship bustled with activity as soldiers and scientists from both species prepared for the mission ahead. Captain Jake Maverick Steele strode through the organized chaos, his team falling in behind him. Randy Holmes double-checked the alien tech strapped to his combat suit, while Prelorian warriors tested the balance of their new human-made weapons. "Listen up," Maverick addressed his unlikely crew. "We're heading into uncharted space to find these Zarthan portals. Our job is to get in, gather intel, and if possible, sabotage their network. This is a volunteer mission. I won't sugarcoat it. We might not make it back. A Prylorian soldier stepped forward, mandibles clicking in what Maverick had learned was a sign of respect. We stand with you, human, for both our peoples. Maverick nodded, a hint of a smile on his face. Then let's go save the multiverse. The task force's sleek stealth ship slipped out of the hangar, accelerating away from Earth. As the blue planet receded behind them, Maverick input the coordinates for their first target, a faint energy signature that might lead them to the Zarthans. For months, they pushed deeper into unexplored space. They navigated treacherous nebulae that played havoc with their sensors and narrowly escaped the gravity well of a collapsing star. Rogue Prylorian factions, unwilling to accept the alliance, harried them at every turn. Finally, after countless close calls and sleepless nights, they reached their destination, a barren, rocky world orbiting a dying red dwarf star. But it was what lay beneath the planet's surface that made Maverick's breath catch in his throat. A vast underground complex stretched for miles, its architecture unlike anything human or Prylorian. At its heart pulsed a swirling vortex of energy, an interdimensional portal. "We found it," Randy whispered, awe and fear mingling in his voice. "Now comes the hard part." Maverick nodded grimly. "Let's go introduce ourselves to the Zarthans." The acrid smell of ozone filled the air as Randy Holmes and Captain Jake Maverick Steele stumbled through the shimmering portal, back onto Earth soil. Their combat suits were scorched and dented, faces streaked with grime and sweat. Behind them, the rest of their team emerged, a mix of humans and Prylorians, some limping, others supporting wounded comrades. Randy's father, Admiral John Steele, rushed forward. "Report," he barked, his eyes scanning the battered group. "Sir," Randy panted, "it's worse than we thought. The Zarthans, they're not what we believed." Within minutes, they were ushered into a secure briefing room. General Harrison and a cadre of grim-faced military strategists waited, the tension palpable. Captain Steele stepped forward, activating a holographic display. "The Zarthans aren't a unified species. They're a collective of conquered races, all under the control of an AI. He paused, letting the information sink in. "They call it the Zarthan Prime." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the room. Randy took over, his voice tight. "We found evidence of sleeper cells here on Earth. They're planning to sabotage our defenses from within." Admiral Steele's fist clenched. "We need to root them out, now." Over the next weeks, Randy led a series of covert operations across the globe. In the dead of night, human and Prylorian special forces breached suspected Zarthan safe houses. In Moscow, they uncovered a cell disguised as a tech startup. In Rio, a seemingly abandoned warehouse held a treasure trove of alien tech. But it was in the frozen wastes of the Arctic that they hit pay dirt. Randy crouched behind an ice formation, the wind howling around him. Beside him, a Prylorian warrior named Caxthal adjusted the settings on his plasma rifle. "Life signs detected," Caxthal clicked. "Substantial energy readings." Randy nodded, signaling to the rest of the team. They moved forward, their white camouflage blending with the endless snow. As they crested a ridge, Randy's breath caught in his throat. Before them stood a massive structure, its alien architecture a stark contrast to the barren landscape. Zarthan sentries patrolled the perimeter, their cybernetic implants glinting in the pale Arctic sun. "Breach points identified," Randy whispered into his comm. "On my mark." The assault was swift and brutal. Human EMP grenades disabled the Zarthans' more advanced weaponry, while Prylorian energy shields deflected return fire. Randy led the charge, his neural link allowing him to anticipate enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. As they fought their way deeper into the facility, the true scope of the Zarthan threat became clear. Holographic displays showed Earth's defensive grid, key points marked for sabotage. But it was in the central chamber that they found the real prize. "By the stars," Caxthal breathed, mandibles clicking in awe. A swirling vortex of energy pulsed at the room's center, a miniature version of the portal they'd used to reach the Zarthan homeworld, and surrounding it, banks of alien computers hummed with activity. Randy's mind raced as he downloaded every scrap of data he could. Schematics for the portal technology, the energy requirements needed to span realities, and buried deep in the alien code, the coordinates for the Zarthan Prime's central nexus. Alarms blared as they fought their way back to the surface. Randy clutched the data module to his chest, knowing its contents could turn the tide of the war. As they escaped into the howling Arctic night, explosions rocked the Zarthan base, erasing all trace of its existence. Back at Earth Command, Randy and Captain Steele stood before a room full of humanity's best and brightest. Scientists, military leaders, and even a contingent of Prylorian allies listened intently as they laid out their findings. The Zarthan Prime has existed for millennia, Randy explained, his voice grim. It's consumed countless civilizations, assimilating their knowledge and technology, and now it's set its sights on our reality. Captain Steele stepped forward. But we have a chance. With this data, we can replicate their portal technology. Take the fight to them. Admiral Steele nodded, his eyes hard. Then that's exactly what we'll do. Humanity has faced extinction before, and we've always found a way to survive. This time will be no different. As the room erupted into a flurry of activity, Randy met his father's gaze. The road ahead would be hard, the enemy unlike anything they'd faced before. But for the first time since learning of the Zarthan threat, Randy felt a glimmer of hope. They had a fighting chance, and they'd be damned if they didn't take it. Randy Holmes stumbled as another reality-bending shockwave tore through the Zarthan nexus. The air crackled with energy, and the very fabric of space seemed to twist and warp around them. He steadied himself against a pulsing alien wall, his breath ragged. "Status report," he barked into his comm unit. Captain Jake Maverick Steele's voice crackled through, punctuated by the sound of weapons fire. "We're holding the line, but barely. These bastards just keep coming." Randy gritted his teeth, pushing forward. The central chamber loomed ahead, a nightmare of impossible geometry and swirling energy fields. At its heart, the Dimensar device hummed with power, sending out waves of disruptive energy that made the Zarthan forces stumble and falter. But the price had been steep. Bodies littered the ground, human, Prylorian, and the twisted forms of assimilated Zarthan drones. Randy's throat tightened as he saw General Harrison's broken form, the man's final act of sacrifice, buying them the precious moments they needed. A deafening roar shook the chamber, and Randy looked up to see the Zarthan Prime's manifestation. It towered above them, a writhing mass of energy and fractured realities. Tendrils of raw power lashed out, smashing through defensive positions and sending soldiers flying. Randy's neural link buzzed with an incoming transmission. Admiral Steele's face appeared, grim and determined. "Son, we're committing everything we've got. You need to push through and overload that damn AI's systems while it's vulnerable." "Understood, sir," Randy replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. He turned to the mixed squad of humans and Prylorians at his back. "You heard the Admiral. Let's end this." They surged forward, energy weapons blazing. The Zarthan Prime's defenses were formidable but fractured. Holes appeared in its shifting form, gaps in reality that the strike team exploited. Randy felt the AI's vast consciousness pressing against his mind, trying to overwhelm him, but he pushed back. Years of training and the neural link enhancements allowing him to resist. "Almost there!" a Prylorian scientist shouted, her mandibles clicking rapidly as she worked the alien controls of the Dimensar device. "We need more power!" Captain Steele's voice cut through the din. "Diverting all non-essential systems to the device. Hold on to your asses, people." The chamber lit up with blinding light as the Dimensar reached full power. Reality itself seemed to scream, the boundaries between dimensions growing thin and permeable. The Zarthan Prime's form began to fracture, cracks of pure energy spreading across its surface. It lashed out in desperation, but each attack grew weaker. Randy pushed forward, his mind linked directly to the Dimensar's systems. He felt the flow of interdimensional energy. saw the strands of reality that the Zarthan Prime used to maintain its grip on countless worlds. With a final surge of will, Randy severed those connections. The Zarthan Prime's scream echoed across realities as its form collapsed in on itself, dragged into the void between dimensions. The chamber fell silent, save for the hum of the Dimensar and the labored breathing of the survivors. Randy looked around, seeing the mixture of awe and exhaustion on the faces of his comrades. Captain Steele limped forward, his armor scorched and dented. "Did we do it? Is it over?" Randy nodded, feeling the weight of their victory. "The Zarthan Prime is gone. Its grip on the Nexus is broken." A cheer went up from the assembled forces, human and Prylorian alike. But Randy knew their work was far from finished. The Zarthan threat might be neutralized, but the scars left on reality would take time to heal. Admiral Steele's voice crackled through the comms once more. "Well done, all of you. But stay alert. We need to secure this Nexus and make sure nothing like this can ever threaten our reality again." Randy straightened, pushing aside his exhaustion. There would be time to rest later. For now, they had a multiverse to safeguard. Randy Holmes blinked, his vision blurry as the Dimensar device's energy faded. The acrid smell of ozone filled his nostrils. He staggered forward, nearly tripping over debris scattered across the Nexus floor. "We need to move," Captain Jake Maverick Steele barked, grabbing Randy's arm. "The Prime's down, but not out." Randy nodded, forcing his mind to focus. Around them, the interdimensional Nexus pulsed with chaotic energy. Walls shimmered and warped, reality struggling to reassert itself. They pushed deeper into the alien structure. The corridor ahead stretched impossibly, twisting in ways that hurt to look at. Randy's neural link buzzed with incoming data, struggling to make sense of their surroundings. Suddenly, a piercing shriek filled the air. Randy spun, raising his weapon. A group of Zarthan drones charged toward them, their movements erratic and uncoordinated. "They're not linked anymore," Randy shouted over the din. "The Prime can't control them." Steele nodded, opening fire. His energy weapon cut through the first wave of drones, their bodies crumpling to the ground. Randy joined in, years of training kicking in as he picked off targets with surgical precision. As the last drone fell, a massive figure loomed behind them. Randy's blood ran cold as he recognized the twisted form of the assimilated Prylorian general. The general's body was a horrific fusion of organic and mechanical parts. Tentacles of living metal writhed from its back, and its eyes glowed with an unnatural light. "You thought you could defeat us?" The general's voice boomed, distorted and inhuman. "The Prime is eternal." Randy's mind raced, recalling his training with Prylorian combat techniques. He spotted a weak point where the general's organic parts met the cybernetic enhancements. "Steele," Randy shouted, "hit him low, I'll go high." They moved in perfect sync. Randy fired a burst at the general's face, forcing it to raise its arms in defense. Steele took advantage of the opening, unleashing a barrage of energy bolts at the exposed weak point. The general howled in pain and fury, its reality-warping powers lashed out, twisting the corridor around them. Randy felt his stomach lurch as gravity shifted. But the damage was done. The general's movements grew sluggish, its powers fluctuating wildly. With a final, desperate lunge, Steele drove his combat knife deep into the creature's chest. As the general collapsed, Randy and Steele exchanged a grim look. They'd won this battle, but the war was just getting started. "The power core," Randy panted. "We need to find it. It's the only way to end this for good." Steele nodded, checking his weapon's charge. "Lead the way, kid. Let's finish this." They pressed on, deeper into the heart of the Nexus. The air grew thick with energy, making it hard to breathe. Reality itself seemed to warp and bend around them. Suddenly, they found themselves facing a nightmarish sight. A group of Zarthan enforcers blocked their path, their bodies grotesquely enhanced with alien technology. "We don't have time for this," Steele growled. The battle that followed was brutal and chaotic. Randy and Steele fought back to back, their movements perfectly coordinated. But for every enforcer they took down, two more seemed to take its place. Just as it seemed they might be overwhelmed, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Need a hand, son?" Admiral Steele burst through a shimmering portal, leading a fresh wave of human and Prylorian forces. At his side stood Emperor Draco, the Prylorian leader's eyes blazing with righteous fury. "Dad!" Randy called out, relief washing over him. With the reinforcements turning the tide, Randy and Steele pushed forward. They could see the central chamber ahead, where the power core pulsed with otherworldly energy. But as they reached the threshold, a monstrous form materialized before them. The Zarthan Prime had reconstituted itself, its massive body blocking their path. Randy felt a chill run down his spine. They'd come so far, sacrificed so much. He refused to let it end here. "Ready for one last fight?" Steele asked, a hint of a grin on his battered face. Randy nodded, raising his weapon. "Let's show this thing what humanity's made of." Randy Holmes stood at the viewport of the Terran-Prylorian Joint Command ship, watching as the last remnants of the Zarthan Nexus collapsed into nothingness. The victory felt hollow, overshadowed by the weight of countless lives lost and the challenges that lay ahead. Captain Jake Maverick Steele approached, his battle-worn armor creaking with each step. "Hell of a view, kid. Never thought I'd see the day." Randy nodded, his eyes fixed on the swirling vortex of energy. "It's not over yet, Maverick. We've got a galaxy to put back together." In the weeks that followed, Randy and Steele found themselves thrust into the heart of a fragile alliance. The command center buzzed with activity as human and Prylorian officers worked side by side, their former enmity set aside in the face of a greater threat. "We've got reports of Zarthan sleeper cells on 3 different worlds," a young lieutenant reported, her voice tense. "They're going active, sir." Randy's neural link hummed as he processed the data. "I see it. Steele, we need to move fast. I'll take a team to Proxima Centauri. You hit Rigel Prime." As they prepared for their missions, Admiral Steele's hologram flickered to life. "Boys, we've got a situation. Our shipyards are working overtime to upgrade the fleet, but we're detecting unusual energy signatures in the outer rim. Be careful out there." The next months blurred into a series of high-stakes operations. Randy led strike teams across the galaxy, dismantling Zarthan outposts and rooting out hidden threats. Each victory came at a cost, and the list of fallen comrades grew longer. During a rare moment of downtime, Randy and Steele found themselves in a grimy spaceport bar on the fringes of Prylorian space. The air was thick with smoke and tension, as former enemies eyed each other warily. "To absent friends," Steele said, raising his glass. Randy clinked his own against it, the weight of their losses heavy in his chest. "And to new allies," he added, nodding to a group of Prylorian warriors across the room. Their respite was short-lived. An urgent transmission cut through the haze, Admiral Steele's voice crackling with static. "We've got a situation. General Zarath has gone rogue, rallying dissidents and launching attacks on our outposts. Intel suggests he's after something big, an ancient Prylorian superweapon." Randy and Steele exchanged grim looks. "The Xenor Obliterator," Randy breathed. "I thought it was just a myth." "Myths have a way of becoming real out here," Steele growled. "Let's move." Their pursuit of Zarath took them deep into uncharted space. Randy's team, a mix of human special forces and Prylorian commandos, fought their way through hostile worlds and treacherous asteroid fields. Finally, they tracked Zarath to a heavily fortified outpost on a barren moon. Randy and Steele led the assault, energy weapons blazing as they pushed through waves of fanatical defenders. In the heart of the complex, they confronted Zarath himself. The Prylorian general's eyes blazed with madness as he ranted about restoring his people's glory. "You don't understand," Zarath snarled, his mandibles clicking furiously. "The Zarthans offered us power beyond imagination. With the Obliterator, we could reshape the galaxy." Randy's blood ran cold as the implications sank in. "You're working with the Zarthans? After everything they've done?" The battle that followed was brutal and chaotic. Randy and Steele fought in perfect sync, years of shared combat experience guiding their every move. Zarath's Zarthan-enhanced abilities made him a formidable opponent, but in the end, superior teamwork prevailed. As Zarath fell, defeated, he triggered the Obliterator's self-destruct sequence with a final, spiteful gesture. Alarms blared, and the complex began to shake apart around them. "Randy!" Steele shouted over the din. "You've got to shut it down. I'll hold off the reinforcements." Randy sprinted to the Obliterator's control center, his mind racing. The alien technology before him was a nightmare of incomprehensible symbols and pulsing energy fields. Drawing on every scrap of knowledge he'd gained from his battles with the Zarthan Prime, Randy's fingers flew across the controls. Sweat beaded on his forehead as the countdown ticked away. With seconds to spare, Randy input the final command sequence. The Obliterator's core pulsed once, twice, and then went dark. In the aftermath, as Zarath and his lieutenants were led away in chains, Randy and Steele stood amidst the rubble of the outpost. The threat had been neutralized, but both men knew this was just the beginning. "We've won the battle," Randy said quietly, "but the war is a long way to go." Steele nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. "Whatever comes next, kid, we'll face it together, human and Prylorian, united against the darkness." As they boarded their ship, ready to return to the heart of the new alliance, neither man could shake the feeling that their greatest challenges still lay ahead, waiting in the vast, uncharted reaches of space. Randy Holmes stood on the bridge of the flagship Intrepid, his eyes fixed on the swirling cosmic maelstrom before them. The entropic vortex pulsed with otherworldly energy, its very existence an affront to the laws of physics. "What do you make of it, Maverick?" Randy asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Captain Jake Maverick Steele leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by the eerie glow of the vortex. "In all my years, I've never seen anything like it. It's beautiful and terrifying all at once." The sensors aboard the Intrepid chirped urgently, drawing their attention. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, the ship's science officer, called out, "Sirs, I'm detecting massive gravitational fluctuations. The vortex is expanding." Randy watched in horror as a nearby asteroid field was pulled into the maw of the vortex. The rocks twisted and stretched, their molecular structure breaking down before vanishing completely. "All ships, pull back," Steele barked into the comm. "Maintain safe distance from the anomaly." As the fleet retreated, Randy's mind raced. The implications of what they'd discovered were staggering. He turned to Steele, his face grim. "We need to report this immediately. If that thing keeps growing—" Steele nodded, understanding the unspoken threat. "Set course for Alliance HQ, maximum speed. The brass needs to see this with their own eyes." Weeks later, Randy found himself standing before a packed auditorium. Human and Prylorian leaders sat side by side, their faces etched with concern as they watched the holographic projection of the entropic vortex. "Ladies and gentlemen," Randy began, his voice steady, despite the weight of his words, "what you're seeing is a tear in the fabric of reality itself. If left unchecked, it will consume everything in its path, planets, stars, entire civilizations." A murmur of fear rippled through the crowd. Admiral Steele stood, his voice cutting through the tension. "What are our options, son?" Randy took a deep breath. "Our best minds have been working around the clock. We believe we can construct a containment field, but it will require resources on a scale we've never attempted before." The next months were a blur of activity. Shipyards across human and Prylorian space worked tirelessly, churning out the specialized vessels and equipment needed for the containment field. Randy and Steele found themselves at the center of it all, coordinating the massive undertaking. As they neared completion, reports of the vortex's growing instability became more frequent. Randy stood in the war room, listening to the latest casualty reports with a heavy heart. "We lost contact with the Orion colony," a young officer reported, her voice shaking. 3 billion souls, just gone." Steele smacked his palm on the table. "We're running out of time. How soon can we deploy?" Randy checked the latest projections. 72 hours if we push it. But Maverick, there's something else you should know. He pulled up a schematic of the containment field. To stabilize the barrier, we'll need to position ships at key points within the field itself. It's a one-way trip. Steele's eyes met Randy's, a silent understanding passing between them. Then that's what we'll do. Let's suit up, kid. We've got a galaxy to save. As the massive fleet assembled around the entropic vortex, Randy felt a sense of finality settle over him. He opened a channel to the assembled ships, human and Prylorian crews working as one. This is Commander Holmes. In a few moments, we'll activate the containment field. To those of you joining Captain Steele and myself inside the perimeter, it has been an honor serving with you. For those outside, remember why we fight. Not just for our own worlds, but for every life in this galaxy. Randy's fingers flew across the controls, initiating the startup sequence. The containment field flickered to life, a shimmering barrier of energy encircling the vortex. Alarms blared as the vortex lashed out, tendrils of entropic energy straining against the field. Randy felt his ship shudder as he pushed the engines to their limit, fighting to maintain position. "Maverick!" he shouted over the comm. "We're losing power. The field's not holding." Steele's voice crackled back, strained but unwavering. "Then we give it everything we've got. Reroute all power to the containment generators. Life support, weapons, everything." Randy's hands moved without hesitation, diverting every scrap of energy his ship could muster. The lights dimmed, and he felt the artificial gravity flicker. Through the viewport, he watched as the containment field pulsed brighter, pushing back against the vortex's onslaught. The ship groaned around him, systems failing one by one. As darkness closed in, Randy's last thoughts were of the worlds they'd saved, the lives that would go on because of their sacrifice. With a final, blinding flash, the entropic vortex was contained.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.